Hello everyone, this is City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout for you that I made using the June My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. The June kit features a beautiful Prima collection. It was designed by Frank Garcia and the name of it is Magic Love. For this layout I'm using 3 small photos. They are 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches and they are all photos of my dogs. And at Easter time, I took a photo of each one of them wearing some bunny ears, which might be kind of silly, but I think it's pretty cute too. So I have gessoed a piece of thick, heavy white cardstock. It's 120 pounds, which is a fairly heavyweight cardstock. And once I covered it in white gesso, I let it dry, and now I'm applying some sprays. The sprays that I'm using are all Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists. I'm using Golden Aqua, Bright Patina, a green color, which I'll use in a few moments, that didn't have a name to it that I could see anyway, anywhere on the bottle, Tropical Water, and Lime Luster. And I am basically going for a blue and green color scheme here. So I'm using the packaging technique, taking a small piece of plastic. First I applied the blue and now I'm applying the green, and I didn't worry too much about drying the blue before I add the green because if they mix together they'll just make a pretty blue-green color. I also sprinkled some water on the background and then I used a paper towel to lift up some of the color, and that just creates a cool effect on the background. It looks like little water droplets. I am drying the background now so that when I apply another layer of color it will build on the color and make it look a little bit more intense. Although a little bit later on I decide that the color is a little too intense, and I'll show you that in a few moments. So I'm adding a few splatters on the background, and now I'm using the stencil that came in the kit this month, and I'm adding some modeling paste. I'm using the Crafters Workshop modeling paste, and I just mix it with a little bit of white acrylic paint just to make it pure white. And I'm trying not to create any straight lines with my application of the modeling paste. I am trying to make the edge more of a diagonal so that it looks a little bit more natural. And here I am adding some more splatters to the background. These are some white splatters, and I'm just using some watered down white acrylic paint. Now, this is not an Easter collection, but it had a spring kind of theme to it. There were a lot of really cute little embellishments that I thought would go well with this Easter layout. So there was a little quartet of bunnies, which was so super cute, that was playing instruments, and I just cut one of them off since I have 3 dogs and not 4. 3 is enough. I thought I would just have 3 of them together and then I would use the other bunny on another part of the layout. Now I'm applying some white gesso to the color on the background. I compared the background to some of the pattern papers that were in the collection, and I felt that the color that I had applied was just a little bit too bright. If I put any of the embellishments on top of this, I felt that the background color would overpower the embellishments, and I didn't want that. So applying a little bit of gesso, just a light coat, can really help to send that background back into the background and allow the embellishments to be featured rather than the background be overwhelming. And you can avoid this by using different medium in the background or watering the sprays down a little bit more. I found that watercolor crayons of all different brands, they tend to be a little bit more subtle, so you could try that. But I like the way I can control the intensity by putting the gesso on top, so I find that this just works just fine for me. Now I'm adding some more splatters in. Here I'm adding some blue splatters, and then I go ahead and add a few green splatters too. And I'm trying to mainly apply the splatters underneath the large area of color. I like when the splatters kind of help transition the large areas of color into the background by being along the border of that large area of color. Now the mixed media is complete, everything is dry. And I took this sheet of pattern paper from the collection and I ripped it along the bottom. And you could see it kind of almost comes to a point, and I'm going to arrange my photos around that point. And each of the photos has been mounted on a piece of white cardstock, just a very thin border. So I attach all the photos together. I'm backing all of them with some fun foam. And that'll just help give a tiny bit of dimension to this layout, and to the photos especially. So I have all of the fun foam on the back of the photos, and I'm using some ATG adhesive to attach that whole unit down. And now I'm going to start embellishing. I'm using some fussy cut pieces, I'm using some of the dimensional flowers, I'm using some of the die cuts from the collection, and also some chipboard. And I will let you know that I do move things around a lot on this layout, and there might be some times when you see something jump from one area to another, because I do like to keep my videos under 20 minutes, so I had a lot of footage of me fussing around with all of these embellishments, but they were just minor changes. Now I spilled a little something on that pink paper, so when I tried to clean it up, I kind of made a mess of it, but no worries, I just tore a little bit more on that angle and the spot was gone. My plan is to have just 2 clusters. I'm going to be putting most of the embellishments around the photos, and I'm also going to have the title up in the upper right hand corner, and I'll have some embellishments around the title as well. So here I'm arranging everything around the photos. You can see that on the top those flowers kind of make a straight line, and I don't like the way that looks. I always like to look at the outline of the shape that all of the embellishments make, and I changed that a little bit because I don't like the way all of the embellishments are at the same height. So there you could see that I did move those flowers off to the left. You could see that I did move around a lot of things. Here I am making a new tag. I liked the tag that came in the collection, but I decided that it would look a little bit better if I had a different color tag right there. So I'm just using the tag that was in the collection and a piece of the pattern paper in the kit and making my own tag. And I punched a hole in it, and I'm also going to be putting some ribbon in a little while. I wanted to add some of the Tiffany blue color to the large cluster. So I took one of the cut apart cards there, and I used some very old scissors. I don't know if you recognize these scissors. They are from many years ago, but I still like to use this particular scissor because it creates a nice little scallop, and I was able to cut a little strip of that blue color that I wanted to include, and I put a little strip of it over each of the photos. And that edge just gives a little bit of interest to the strip of paper. And I'm now cutting each of those little strips down to size and tucking them behind. I went through all of the embellishments and I pulled out all the embellishments I liked, and also the ones that I thought would kind of add to this Easter theme that I have here. It's definitely not an Easter collection, but just pulling out a couple of these little embellishments and putting them together, I feel like made me able to create an Easter layout. And of course, flowers are great for an Easter layout. I love this basket. It's not an Easter basket, but I thought that it was pretty. And so I cut down the card it was on just so it'll fit in that spot a little bit better. And now I'm using some Distress ink in Vintage Photo, and I am just inking the edges of all of the embellishments that are on the background. As I had mentioned, these are photos of my 3 dogs, and they were very cooperative, at least for a few moments, in letting me put these bunny ears on their heads and take a photo of them. And Jackson, who's the white dog all the way on the left, he was probably the least cooperative, but he did let me put them on him for a moment, and I was able to get a picture, although that was the most challenging one. They're all mutts, they're all many different breeds, and they're none of the same breeds. They're all a different set of breeds, and yet they all get along pretty well, and they make a nice little group. I'm super happy to have them. You can see there that I added some ribbon to the tag, and I tucked it back behind the photos. And now I'm just attaching down some of those items that I had placed but hadn't glued down. Now I am taking those pretty dimensional flowers and I'm putting just a little bit of heavy duty gel medium on the edges and then dipping them in some diamond dust. And this just gives them a little bit of sparkle. And I'm trying not to be too heavy-handed with the gel medium, and in that way there will just be a little sparkle on the edges rather than an overwhelming amount of sparkle, which I used to do in the past, and I think I like this a little bit better. So I'm just arranging everything still, and then I decided that this lace that was included in the kit would look great along the border here, this torn border. So I attach that down with some gel medium, and I do it on the other side as well. Then I was thinking that it would make sense to ink the edges of the photos. So this is probably not the most efficient way of inking the edges of my photos, but it ended up working out fine. I just wanted them to pop just as much as anything else on the page, and I wanted all the inking to be cohesive. You could also see that little basket there on the right that had a card around it. I ended up cutting away the card and just making it into a fussy cut piece, and I feel like that fits in that spot a little bit better. I also cut some of the chicks apart. There were 2 chicks that were attached, and I thought it would look good to have them separated. One is looking to the right and one is looking to the left, and so I put one up on the top left and one on the bottom right. Now I'm inking the edges of these roses. These were fussy cut from one of the pattern papers. For the most part, I left most of the larger embellishments in the same spot. I had the tag and the rabbits and the flowers almost from the beginning in those spots. Not exactly, but for the most part. And I moved around a lot of those smaller fussy cut pieces and other embellishments quite a bit, and I feel like those little adjustments really make a big difference in how the big cluster looks. I feel like you just have to keep playing with the embellishments until you're happy. I put a strip of pattern paper across the top. That's a very thin, about a 1/4 inch strip of pattern paper. And now I'm using some letters that were included in a past kit, and I think that they're the perfect size, but they're just the wrong color. So I am taking some white gesso and I'm using my finger and I'm covering them up with the gesso, and I'm going to put 2 coats of the gesso on because they are black and I want to make sure that the black is covered up. I learned from the scrapbooker Missy Whitten that you never have to take any scrapbooking supply as it is. If you would like to change it for any reason, you can always find some way to paint it or cut it or change it in some way to suit your needs. So once I have the 2 layers of gesso on top of these letters, I dry them, and then I take 2 of those same sprays that I used on the background and I spray them directly on the letters, and I am mixing the blue and the green together just as I did on the background. I spray the letters a couple of times, and then I use my paintbrush and just move some of the color around, and then I just put them aside and let them dry. Now I'm thinking that I would like to add a little something to that strip that I put across the top of the layout. So I'm using this American Crafts punch. It's called a knockout punch. And it comes with a couple of different cartridges that you could put in the center and punch out different shapes, but this is the punch that I use the most often. I like the fine scallop that it makes. So I cut out this border strip and I put down some ATG adhesive, and there with my finger I'm just pushing the adhesive back a little bit. And I stick that border down, and I like the way that that looks. I'm just trimming the edges, and now I'm going to be assembling that title cluster up on the top. So I place down all the letters for Easter bunnies. Once I have all the letters centered and arranged the way I want them, I add a few embellishments in. There's that 4th bunny that I cut off of the other 3, and I use some ATG adhesive to attach down the letters and then also that little bunny. So now I'm doing the same thing to the letters that I did to the background. I'm taking some white gesso and I'm just putting a very light coat of it over each of those chipboard letters. I want the intensity of the letters to match the background. So just fading them out a little bit will help to do that. Now I'm adding some branches to the background. I die cut these branches on some white paper, and then I emboss them. First I emboss them with a coppery color of embossing powder, and then I just emboss a few spots with gold. And I use some of them whole and some of them I cut into smaller pieces, and I think that just makes it a little bit more interesting to have different sizes of the branches on the page. I'm adding some self-adhesive pearls to the background. These are very, very tiny pearls. Some of them are not super small, but some of them are really, really tiny, and My fingers are not super tiny, so I had a little bit of trouble manipulating them, but I did end up putting a number of pearls around the background. I didn't put as many as I usually put on the background, but I think that it's a good amount and the background's already quite busy, so I just wanted to add a little touch to a couple of different areas. Now I'm using some masking tape to hold that lace back, and that completes the layout. Here are some close-ups of the layout. Thank you so much for watching this video, everyone. I hope that there was something on this video that gave you an idea or two that you could use on your own scrapbooking pages. Please take a look in the description box for the link to the My Creative Scrapbook website. They have so many beautiful kits. This is the limited edition kit, and they have quite a few others as well, and they have new ones every month. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I hope to see all of you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.